Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 22 of On the Flank. I am one of your hosts, John George, alongside Joe Kirkpatrick. Say hello, Joe.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
And Joe, lots of pressure. We gained a nice little following after our episode with Andro, which it was fantastic to have her on. Thank you once again to Ann. But it's been quite a week over on Twitter. Not only that, but the old Seagull man, Brandon, he tweeted, he wrote an article about some podcasts and featured us on the flank in that article. So thank you to him as well. It's been a hell of a week, Joe. You excited to live up to the expectations now of being an Overwatch League podcast?
I mean,
officially,
I feel like we have been for a while now. So sure.
Yeah, to us we've been, but now more people know about us. It's crazy. But if this is your first time listening, this is just it's an Overwatch, competitive Overwatch podcast. We don't only talk about the Overwatch League. We talk about contenders. We talk about just casual Overwatch too. We talk about patches. We talk about events like we will today because the Lunar New Year was just announced. And we just talk everything Overwatch, basically. So thank you guys for joining us. We're excited to continue doing this. We started this up back in August, which is crazy. I can't believe we've been doing it for 22 episodes now, but we're almost there. We're almost to season 2.
We're almost actually to the point of the show.
We started literally at the beginning of the off season just so we could get some practice in, and I think we're well practiced and we're ready for this season already. But let's start off with the end of another season, Contenders 2018 season, ending altogether with season 3 and the culmination of not only the Korean finals but the Australian finals, which we'll talk about in a second. But Joe, Runaway, they did it again. They runners-up, a complete new, or not runners-up, champions, twice in a row, repeats, with a complete new roster. They dropped everybody. They all went to the Overwatch League because they had a fantastic roster. They got a completely new roster of 6 players. They didn't even have anyone on their bench, and they 4-1 Element Mystic, which I didn't know this, but apparently, according to tweets before, every Korean journalist and predicted Element Mystic to win. Literally 100% of Korean journalists predicted Element Mystic to beat Runaway in this match, and they lost 4-1. Joe, did you end up? I know Easter time, harder to watch this. Did you end up seeing any of this?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I did. Like I watched. Well, yeah, so the one part I did watch was the 20-second Twitch clip of them lifting the trophy and breaking the handle off.
Of course.
That was all I saw of that match. But
yeah, I got to see it all, and luckily now that I've moved at a better time, it's fantastic for my health in general. But yeah, it was fun to watch. Obviously, it was not like we said, a 9-map match or anything like that. It wasn't down to the wire or anything this time. It was 4-1. Runaway just dominated. And as a Runaway fan, I mean, I'll take that. I'll take some dominance, and it was fun to watch, and it was hilarious to watch them pick up that trophy, which, by the way, apparently the real trophy wasn't there yet, so that was a filler trophy.
Yeah.
But that was hilarious at that moment to just see that thing break. Joe, Runaway, repeat. I mean, how impressive is this run from a Korean org that, I mean, just came out of nowhere? They don't have any big backing. They don't have any big investments. How impressive is this?
And yeah, to win 2 seasons in a row, that is really cool to see, you know, and to fill out the consistency too. You know, we talked about the 2018 season 2 when they won with the current Vancouver Titans roster, but to lose all of them and come back and still maintain that position in Korean Contenders, you know, it's a good sign really for the org too. You know, so I don't know exactly how things might develop in the future, but they've got to be really having people look at that. Just like I think Atlanta, I forget what team it was, but picked up an established contenders team for their like academy team, for example. I wonder if maybe we'll see like one of the new. I guess it would have to be
Yeah,
a
it
Korean
can't be
team.
anybody
So
because
yeah, no,
Seoul already has one, so they
yeah,
just can't.
yeah, because that's their own thing. So never mind. Uh, but yeah, to see definitely, to grow the support that they have around that organization, I think it's going to be, um, they can confidently look forward to that. I think coming into
Yeah.
2019.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. And this is, I mean, people are spending time making infographics and looking back at the legacy of how crazy it is that this team just no investments, no just a ragtag team of basically just some people with high skill in Overwatch coming together and making runs like this, and it's culminated all the way to this, basically known as one of the most successful teams in Korean Overwatch history at this point, which is it's very cool. Yeah, I think I saw a tweet from some ESPN writer, I can't remember, just about how insane their legacy is and how the Korean Overwatch will probably never get a story ever again like this. But yeah, that's the Korean finals. We'll see if Runaway can continue it into the 2019 season, but they had a fantastic 2018 in Contenders. Another team that had a fantastic Contenders 2018 time was the Sydney Drop Bears in Australia, because they won all three of the seasons in 2018. I don't think either of us are too big into the Australian Contenders side, right, Joe?
No, but you will recognize if you watched the Overwatch World Cup this last year in particular, you recognize lots of the players on this team. Punks, CKM, Kraken, and Huss, all from Team Australia, are also formed the core of this Sydney Drop Bears roster. Also, Trill used to play on there. He's currently on Team Envy now, but he was in all the way through. Did he drop Bears? Yeah, season. Okay, he was on. Trill was on Drop Bears for 13 days, according to Liquipedia, before he got in this last 2018 season before he got picked up by Team Envy. So,
Wow, a good time,
but
to
yeah,
be sure.
lots of
Yeah.
those Australian players you might recognize, though.
Color X was also on the team, who's now on the Boston Uprising, of
There you
course. Yeah, Sydney Drop Bear. They just seem like the Australian team, I guess. It says their Wikipedia page says is an Australian Overwatch team. I think it's the Australian Overwatch team at this point.
Although I think they beat Order. I think Order's
Yeah.
gotten second now for 2 seasons in a row, or maybe it was Dark-Sided. I don't know. That got second last time, but whatever.
Yeah, they beat Order 4-1. So 2 4-1s we're talking about. Lots of 4-1s. You hate to see the 4-1s in best of 7 series. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
you
true.
want it to go down to the wire. But it's better than 4-0. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
So 2 in-game events we get to talk about. Well, today, unfortunately, the Bastet Challenge is officially over today. So if you didn't get your skins or anything like that, you might want to log on last second. I don't know when you're listening to this podcast. It might be too late. But if you want those rewards and you haven't been playing Overwatch since this started, you might want to get those Ana rewards because they're pretty nice and they're easy to get. And then we got the Lunar New Year. January starts January 24th, which is in 3 days, and another event I look forward to all the time as a person who took Chinese for like 7 years. I'm very familiar with the Lunar New Year and the Chinese New Year and all that. So what are the 3 skins here? Reinhardt, Reaper, and Hangzhou over on their Twitter page. But what I'm most excited about is in the trailer you got Soldier 76 playing with the little drum, which is
It's got to be a highlight intro.
It's got to be a highlight intro, right? It looks just like a highlight intro, and I need that highlight intro because many times when I've been celebrating Chinese New Year, I have gravitated straight to that little drum. I do not know what it's called, but they are so much fun to play with, and that is a fantastic highlight intro. Joe, what do you think about the skins? They're exactly what I expect from Lunar New Year. They are Lunar New Year skins.
Yeah, it's like they did last year with they have Chinese names, and it's I assume based in different elements of like Chinese mythology, which I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure they all have some significance, and probably here in an hour or so. I don't know. Actually, probably later tonight they'll release another skin like they've been doing for these events now. Just doing teasers every day, but yeah, no, it's going to be good to see what they do here for Year of the Pig is what it's going to be. Last year it was Dog. Before that it was, what was the first one they did?
Was that the monkey one, maybe? I can't remember.
I don't know
what year that was. Yeah, but that's based Chinese New Year. It's a year of an animal every year. I think 12, it cycles through 12 animals, so I can't remember what the first one was. I feel like it was monkey for some reason. But yeah, this Lunar New Year, excited. I still want some new events. I would like some fresh new ones, but as Jeff said, the team is working hard on other stuff, so they don't have too much time to create new events, which is fine with me as long as they're working on other stuff.
Rooster was the first one.
Rooster,
2017,
yes.
Year of the Rooster.
Year of the Rooster, I remember that. So yeah, that's it for Lunar New Year. That's in 3 days. It'll last 3 weeks like it usually does. Let's jump into the news. We got some more this week. Last week we only had one piece of news, but we got some more news here this week. The first being that there are going to be some three live events for Contenders in 2019. 3 showdowns is what they're going to call them.
They're epic live events.
Sorry, I am so sorry. They are epic. That is my bad. They're super epic.
Just quoting Blizzard here.
Yes. But these are interregional. Is the great thing about it is we finally get some region versus region action. So the top of each regions usually get to be playing in these. The first one is called the Pacific Showdown from May 24th to 26th. It's going to happen in China, and as you guessed it, it's between a lot of the Pacific Contenders teams, the top team from Australia, the top 2 from China, the top 2 from Korea, and then the number 1 from Contenders Pacific.
And so
I'm guessing this.
We know some of those already. It's going to be Drop Bears, Runaway, Element Mystic. Scrolling quickly, T1W Esports Club and Flag Gaming from Contenders China. And Contenders Pacific looks like they haven't played the final series yet, but it will either be Nova Esports or Hong Kong Attitude, which is an awesome name.
That's interesting. So we do know that it's going to be from this past season.
I assume so. I mean, because it's
yeah, because we don't know. Well, I feel like maybe the next season could end by then.
Yeah, actually, now that I say that, I don't know because it's all the way in May. May
is super far away. So yeah, it's probably from the first season of Contenders in 2019. Are there only supposed to be 2 in 2019? I can't recall.
Well, because in fact for this for the Gauntlet in October of 2019, it says they're going to send their teams from season 2.
Oh.
So what, you have to qualify from Contenders season 1 to get into the Gauntlet for Contenders season 2.
Well,
this was a really well researched episode today. I just
clearly
wanted to point that out.
I mean, it's got to be somewhere out there. The article does not include this information, but because I don't think we know the exact dates for the Contender seasons either.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out more details as we get closer. But
yeah. But besides the Pacific Showdown, you also have the Atlantic Showdown. You can't leave out your Europe, your North America, and this is going to be happening around the same time, May 31st to June 2nd. They haven't decided the location yet. It just says Europe or Americas, which is
That's
anywhere.
takes it from 7 continents to 3, I suppose.
And the teams invited are the top 2 from Europe, top 3 from North America, and top 1 from South America. Makes sense on the top 3 from North America with all of, I think there's like 14 teams in North America this year or something.
I don't know.
14 or 16 because they're splitting it to 8 each on the regions or something like that, I think. And then you have the Gauntlet, which is the pinnacle of the season, is what they're calling it. It's going to be held from October 10th to 13th in a location to be announced soon, of course. All top-performing regions will send their teams from Season 2 to the Gauntlet. Performance in the Pacific and Atlantic Showdowns will determine specific invites. So this is not only going to be based off places, you're going to get an invite based off of how you did in the Showdown as well, which is, I'm guessing, maybe if you win the Showdown, you automatically get to go to the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet seems like almost a world championship type event for Contenders to me.
Yeah, and there's a line here. It says, we scheduled it after the conclusion of the 2019 Overwatch League season, when teams will once again prepare to sign players for Season 3. So that it does make sense, get them all together. And it really actually, comparatively, for this signing window we've had for Season 2, when obviously lots of contenders pickups, it might actually be more likely to be more visible. Assuming they do it right, Blizzard has sort of a weird history about making contenders visible, but assuming they do it right, they can really hype up this contenders gauntlet and get some fame, some knowledge of like the general Overwatch League fan base into some of these contenders players that they'll probably see in Season 3.
Yeah, and the way they said that it's going to be right after the season makes it feel like not only a world championship thing, but it almost feels like a draft, like a kind of a prospect type event too, like a scouting event.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I'm super excited by this. This is awesome. Just straight up, this is awesome because we get to see contenders individually. I always enjoyed, before contenders was a thing, when the tier 2 scene had when Apex was inviting European and North American teams to their competition. It was always cool to see not only the Korean teams that were good, but see like Team Envious winning the entire Apex tournament, which was the first time a North American team went to Korea in any esport game and won a Korean competition, which is awesome. I love to see things like that. I love to see other regions challenging other regions, especially because this will give players more time to prove themselves as well, because in this off season, majority Koreans were picked up, but there were barely any North Americans picked up. So I think this will allow some players to prove that maybe they do deserve to be picked up. Maybe we can see some big upsets like the Australian teams or South American teams, proving that they do deserve more of the spotlight in their contenders. So I'm glad that Blizzard came out and do this, and this is just great. We were talking about lack of support for the tier 2 scene, and this increases the support, in my opinion. Anything else to talk about on the showdowns, the epic showdowns?
Epic showdowns, yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. I mean, they've got to make sure they do them right, but there is the potential there for it to be done right. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they do. There are only 3 of them. They just got to nail 3 live events. They can do it. All right. Chengdu, we got some more signings here. One signing, actually. Chengdu, they signed Jiqi Ren from Team CC over in Contenders China. If you don't know about them, they've been finishing about 3rd or 4th every Contender season, so not the most impressive, but Chengdu Hunters. They have two other players from Team CC, Late Young and Kaio. And now Jiqi Ren is joining them over on the main tank role. Joe, what do you think about this nice little main tank signing here for the Chengdu Hunters as we get closer to the season?
Um, yeah, so I mean, it's something. I think we have covered Chengdu already in
Yes, we
our
have.
season 2 preview thing, but
Does this change anything for
but
you?
yes. So my comment was going to be, yeah, that I don't think it really changes much for this roster. I mean, we're sitting at now for four tank slash off tank players in Late Young, Ameng, Elsa, and now Jakira and also. But yeah, I don't know. It's to have um, one of the things I talk about with these expansion teams a lot is just considering the options that they have, and so in that sense, it's another option for this team, another thing they can consider for trying to find a stance here, especially at the beginning of season 2. But yeah, it doesn't, at least in my opinion, doesn't change much about what this roster is actually going to end up doing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. It's one player. I don't know. It's not that impressive of a player, but they've got some more depth there. Still not the most impressed with the Chengdu Hunters, but and it maybe that color scheme just keeps coming back to bite him. But yeah, and he already has a number too, which is crazy. 99. They're on top of his number. All these players have numbers. I should go in and just look at all these numbers for fun for some reason. I don't know why I would do that. Lots of sevens in the Chinese teams. You got Gary's 77, Kaio's 7 on Chengdu. They like their sevens over China. It's a lucky number. Chengdu, some more news. They're just news machines this week. They won't have an academy team this season. That's the news from them. So no Chinese contenders team from the Chengdu Hunters. That came from Halo of Thoughts. He tweeted about that one. But they have declined on the offer of having an academy team for season 1 2019. So what do you? I mean, I'm always upset not to see academy support because they clearly have the biggest investment. They have the most money that they can dish out to these tier 2 players. So I'm always upset to see that an academy team can't be in contenders because I would love some more support for the tier 2 players so they stay there. But some of these teams, why? I wonder why. Why do you think some of these teams just don't want to invest it? We're seeing it with NYXL. They don't want the big players. They don't want to have to spend money. Is it okay that these teams are like, we just want to focus on our Overwatch League team?
Yeah, part of it, I'm sure is they just that, that they want to focus primarily on on the L team, the main professional team, which makes sense. That's something you want to succeed just for the sake of your brand. I've seen a sort of cynical approach on Twitter that they're saying, "Oh, Chengdu doesn't want to have an academy team in case it does better than the Hunters do," which you can take that or leave that, but I suppose that could be that would look bad if that was the case, um, but yeah, I don't know. The other option, I think, is just to make sure, especially for these expansion teams, that again, I mentioned Atlanta sort of picked up an established contenders team already uh, for their academy, and that sort of makes sense, because you don't have to put as many. Obviously, you have to put resources in it, but you don't have to. You don't have to like work from the ground with that, and I think with some of these new brands that are already working from the ground up, to have to add to that workload is certainly not ideal for them. I wouldn't think. Uh, yeah, so if I was Chengdu, I think it makes sense. Obviously, you want to get in and take that spot when you can, because again, these 2019 season rules that they've guaranteed academy teams a spot, obviously in the playoffs, but or in the division. I don't
Just
know,
the
the region.
yeah, just the season. Yeah.
Um, anyway, but yeah, so you want to get into that when you can, but um, it does make sense to me to to be able to focus on building
Yeah.
your primary team first.
Lots of work, obviously, and they're just entering the league. It's lots of work to make an entire other team, but I feel like, I don't know, it'd be nice to have if if their contenders team does do better than their Overwatch League team. That's fine because they have first dibs on those players, and then they can bring them up to Overwatch League. But according to Halo of Thoughts, he believes that the Charge and the Hangzhou Spark will be having academy teams. So we do have academy support in Chinese contenders. No worries if you were worried about that. It's looking like the Charge and Hangzhou Spark will be doing that this season. So that's good. We at least got two academy teams over there. Always nice to see. Some more news out of the league. Florida Mayhem, they signed Promise as a coach. Promise, he was previously their Mayhem Academy coach. He's from Germany. He's German, and he was previously before Mayhem Academy coaching in Europe with Young and Beautiful, who performed so in Europe. And Mayhem Academy performed pretty poorly with him as his coach. So he doesn't have the best track record, obviously, which makes the signing kind of fine, right? I don't think anyone's too excited, especially with all the lack of hype that the Mayhem are getting this season. But Joe, do you see maybe a little underdog story brewing?
I mean, we've talked about Florida a little bit already, but sure, there's the possibility there. I mean, the other thing to consider is that they lost in that same announcement, uh, Coach Ryder, I think, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or I assume it's pronounced Ryder. It's got a two in it, but um, to also come through with a change of coach. That's significant enough to think about again trying to take this team and change direction, which is definitely a good choice uh, for season two. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see exactly what the effects of that come out to be later, but um,
Yeah.
until then, it's something.
Yeah, exactly. There's some power rankings are saying that I think that someone put together like Korean power rankings from all the Korean journalists so far, and they had Florida Mayhem pretty high. I mean, not playoffs, but like 10ish, I think, which is a lot higher than everyone else. Everyone else has them like bottom three. So we'll see if Promise can make a difference here for him at all. He hasn't made too big of a difference in contenders so far, but we'll see if it works in Overwatch League. Some big news. Mr. Nate Natcher, the commissioner, sir, a listener of the cast. Well, I don't know. He follows the cast on Twitter. He mentioned during the Pro Pugs last week that their goal was to better align Overwatch League patches with what it is in the live game, and he is glad to announce that the Stage 1 of the 2019 Overwatch League season is going to be played on this upcoming PTR patch, which is 1.32.1, which is the one with the armor, nerfs, and all of that, correct?
Yeah, it's the one on the PTR currently. So
Yes. Which is fantastic. I know he mentioned it during that first big watch point for the 2019 season, but he kind of was wishy-washy on it during that. He wasn't he didn't want to come out and officially say it. So it's great to see this tweet from Nate Natcher officially confirming it. It seems like they're gonna go full force on this and sort of, I'm guessing, have a PTR patch towards the end of the stage, and then bring it to live, and then stage 2 will get the next patch, hopefully. Joe, is this big time or what? I mean, you've been talking about how they barely play on the live patch. This is fantastic, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was something like 12% of 2018 that the Tier 1 professional Overwatch played on the live patch. But yeah, a lot can happen, although I guess we're only 3 weeks, 4 weeks-ish from the start of the season. So, I mean, it might be a little bit old once it hits live, but it'll be pretty close, and I think that is significant. I think the other thing that this announcement tells us is that they're pretty confident about this patch. To have only been on the PTR for a week or a week and a half, because I mean we covered it 2 weeks ago, so it's kind of been out that long. But to have that restriction, to have that limited information that they have, but be confident enough to announce so far in advance, yes, this is what we're doing for stage 1. That's significant. They must be confident enough in some of those changes to really be able to say that. So
yeah,
it's good news potentially.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Jake tweeted that goats in the PTR patch down to about like 75% maybe played from like basically 100% played, I feel like, which I think is an improvement. Obviously, it's still majority played, but every patch, it takes time for players to define the new meta. I feel like every patch, it starts with an older meta, and then people realize, oh, this character is busted now, which takes a couple weeks for that to happen, honestly. So I feel like some of the players are upset that Goats is still dominant, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of other comps, and I'm realizing Goats isn't bad. It's just that it's only Goats. Like, I don't want it to be only Goats.
Yeah, to have the variety is going to be helpful for, especially if people haven't been following professional Overwatch since the end of Overwatch League Season 1, and all of a sudden they come back and it's 4 tanks and whatever.
Like, what is this? It's honestly, if Goats is down to 50%, I don't care, as long as the other 50% is filled with other compositions. Goats is fine as long as there's other stuff too, which is great. I mean, it's great. That Nate announced this like about a month out, so now in scrims the players get to practice on the PTR, and hopefully the coaches and the players get a lot of time to figure out other strategies besides Goats with this armor nerf and all this new stuff that should hopefully bring some change. You gotta hope it's going to bring at least some change. Honestly, I kind of want to hold the players and coaches accountable if there is no change and everyone just keeps playing Goats. But maybe I'll be wrong. I don't know. That's it for the news this week. We're getting back into our Season 2 preview now. It's almost over. We've gone through so many teams. If you haven't been listening, and this is one of your first episodes you're listening to, we've been doing this for a while now. I feel like since episode 16, because I believe that is called Season 2 Preview. So we've gotten a lot of teams. We've been previewing 2 teams per week leading up to the season, where we are going to give out our final power rankings after going through all these teams. We give them an off-season grade. We tell you who we think the standout players for this season are going to be. We give you our anticipated matchups and storylines for the 2019 season, and then we finally give you our comparison to Season 1. Do we think they're going to do better, worse, or the same? So far, we have done the Chengdu Hunters, the Dallas Fuel, the Hangzhou Spark, the Los Angeles Valiant, the San Francisco Shock, the Shanghai Dragons, the Vancouver Titans, the Atlanta Reign, Boston Uprising, Florida Mayhem, Houston Outlaws, London Spitfire, New York Excelsior, and Philadelphia Fusion. If you're a fan of any of those, Go listen to an old episode where we previewed them. I believe every single episode has the teams we preview in that episode in the description if you want to find your specific team. Joe, now that we get to that long-ass spiel that I do it every single time.
Yeah.
This week, we have one of my personal favorite teams this season. I've been hyping them up on the podcast. Let's start off with them, the Los Angeles Gladiators, who, in the offseason, they had to make some moves, of course, because they lost Fissure. They cut Silk Thread, they cut Asher, and they cut iRemix, but they added Panker from Gladiators Legion. They added Roar from Chengdu Panthera, Decay from Chengdu Panthera, and Ripa from Team Giganti. What did you think of the Gladiators offseason?
So, yeah, obviously Gladiators finished Season 1 as a playoff team. Right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they finished. They lost to the London Spitfire in round 1.
All of a sudden I wasn't sure. But yeah, because we saw the Surefour spin around 23 Skidoo, whatever,
Yes.
in playoffs. So that was cool.
I love that name for it.
I don't know. At any rate, but so it was a good team at end of Season 1. And so, I think in general, it's lots of changes. Like you said, they lost Fissure, iRemix, Silk Thread, and Asher, who's now on Toronto Defiant. But yeah, so but yeah, even then, losing Silk Thread and Asher, this is still a really, really strong DPS lineup. Probably, right up there with Philly Fusion, with New York Excelsior, as far as like North America located teams DPS lineups, with Surefour and Hydration in particular, but also again this addition of Decay. And then the hype that this team's gotten for their support line too. Big Goose and Shaz, really successful Overwatch League Season 1, and now adding Ripa to that Finnish trio. We talked about that several weeks ago. So that's also really cool to be looking forward to. I think if you're a Gladiators fan, probably your number one concern is the tank line here. Again, Panker and Roar, plus Bishu and Void. Those are some solid names. The question is whether they can stand up to some of these other also really solid tank lineups. Thinking in particular of like San Francisco Shock, Choyo with Super Smurf, or LA Valiant, fake Kuki Space, that sort of thing. Especially in a tank dominated meta, to have Panker and Roar, they definitely got some stepping up to do for sure. Obviously, from their contenders teams, and so. But then again, also that there was definitely lots of confidence put in them. I know from Gladiators fans, they were really hyped to hear that addition. So, but I can't help but think to go from Fissure to most other tank players is probably a bit of a downgrade. But to be able to reinforce the strong DPS lines and the strong support line that they have, those are definitely some good pickups. But yeah, so if I was going to be satisfied with what they've done, I'd like to see I'd like to be able to see good things out of this tank line going into Season 2. But so off-season grade, it's they're putting lots of confidence in their returning players for sure. A little bit of a downgrade in the tank line, but one hopefully that will still end up really reliable for them, especially in a tank-heavy meta. So it's a grade. I'll give them. It's definitely a solid B, I think, here for LA Gladiators.
Oh yeah, you talk about that tank line. I think all eyes are on them, honestly, because of that loss in Fissure and losing iRemix there too. You got a whole brand new faces in that main tank role with Roar and Panker, and there's going to be lots of expectations because the Gladiators, yes, they were really successful last year. They finished 4th in the overall standings, even though they lost to the eventual champion London Spitfire in that first round of the playoffs. I think people legitimately thought this team could take it all home, and it was because of Fissure. we can't deny that it was because of Fissure. I think everyone was saying it. Fissure hard carried this team throughout season 1. And then he unfortunately had a little breakdown there and didn't play in the playoffs, which was very unfortunate for the Gladiators. They end up losing Fissure because of that, traded to the Seoul Dynasty. But given the circumstances, I honestly think Gladiators had one of the best off seasons. Specifically in getting Roar, that was great. I think Roar is not going to be as good as Fissure. I don't think he's going to carry the team. It's going to be hard to be as good as Fissure, but I still think it's a solid replacement for Fissure. And I think Panker's a great backup to Roar as well. But I think Decay is the man we should talk about because, according to reports, this guy was the most sought-out player in the offseason. He was being offered the most money, and I believe in the end got, besides the entire Runaway team, got offered the most money as a free agent by the Los Angeles Gladiators, getting Decay, who could possibly be one of the best DPS pickups this offseason. I mean, that's fantastic for them to add to Surefour and Hydration, already a great DPS lineup. And they unfortunately lost out on Asher and Silk Thread this past offseason. So getting Decay was fantastic for them. Especially, I believe, we don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but according to reports, everyone was bidding on this guy. Everybody wanted Decay. So for Gladiators to end up getting him in the end after losing the player that previously carried them, they might have gotten a new carry here in Decay. So for their offseason, I am going to give them a B+. You can't deny losing Fissure is going to hurt you a lot, but maybe in the end it'll be good because it seems like Fissure maybe was a bit selfish. Maybe in the end wasn't their best option. Especially, I mean, you don't want a player that is going to carry you the whole season, and then when it comes down to it, when it comes down to winning a championship, he decides that he doesn't want to really play anymore. That's not what you want.
That's not what he's here for.
Yeah, he's here to play the whole season, specifically the most important part of the season, the playoffs. So hopefully Roar doesn't have that breakdown either. I don't think they want Fissure in the end. And Seoul Dynasty, in their preseason game, obviously it's a preseason game, already showing that they weren't even starting Fissure at the beginning of it, so which is very interesting. But I think Fissure will end up being a stand-up player for Dynasty in the end. But it would be hilarious if I mentioned this early on the podcast, if Fissure went back to another Korean team like he was on London Spitfire and then just got benched again like he did on the London Spitfire. But yeah, B+ from me. Standout players, Joe. We did talk a lot about players right there, but I think we should just nail this down. Who's going to be the Gladiators' most valuable player, their MVP in the 2019 season? I know it's hard. They got a lot of great players. They're a team. But who's their MVP?
Yeah, so I guess sort of the way I've been interpreting this with lots of other teams, so the way I'll continue to, is the player that I'm going to want to watch, the player that is going to have to be an MVP for lots of these other rosters. And so definitely here for LA Gladiators, it's going to be one of the tanks here that's going to have to be performing well. We talked about that already, but if I had to pick one, maybe again for this for the sake of consistency and some synergies, maybe Roar there in the main tank position. Coming in with his former teammate Decay, again, like you mentioned, but that he's definitely going to be one of the most important players to ensure their success for LA Gladiators, definitely.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Roar is, I think, he's got big shoes to fill, and I believe he could fill them. But for me, MVP, I'm going to give it to two players, and it's the silent MVP for the Gladiators, I believe, last year as well, Shaz and Big Goose. Back when LA Gladiators duped us all and said that Shaz and Big Goose were going to be released, that was, God, I can't believe that happened. And for a second, I thought these two were gone, but they're fantastic support duo. I think one of the most underrated support duos in the league. They just got great synergy. They're so consistent. And I think that they were honestly silent MVP behind Fissure last season, because Fissure was the big Reinhardt guy, he was in your face. Shaz and Big Goose, we don't get to see what they're doing too often, and I think they're silent MVPs for this team. I think they'll do it again this year. They're just consistent, amazing support players. Gladiators, they have lots of rivalries, none better than the Los Angeles versus Los Angeles rivalry. What are your anticipated matchups for 2019 for the Gladiators? They've made tons of rivals. They've got Fissure out there. Who are you most looking forward to seeing the Gladiators play?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of them definitely is going to be, this is for me personally, whether the other people might not agree, but the Gladiators and Dallas Fuel. I kind of want to watch that match, particularly because of both rosters' history with Team Canada in particular.
Okay.
Looking at, I guess, Surefour specifically from Gladiators, and obviously, Jane Conan coached Dallas Fuel. I guess I said there aren't tons of connections, but in my head, what came into my head was Surefour and Jane. But so that'll be cool. But yeah, honestly, this is another one of those teams that their really first few matches is going to be really significant too. Whenever that happens to be, I don't have it in front of me, but yeah.
Yeah, the first game against Seoul, and then San Francisco Shock right after that, which is fantastic. And then 2 games later, they're facing the London Spitfire, which is the team I'm going to mention. I know that it always used to be a big rivalry because it was Fissure's old team, and they no longer have Fissure. But I still think this is a big rivalry, honestly. Gladiators have come out just on top of the London Spitfire almost every time they play each other. Except this last time, which was the worst, which was the saddest time to not come out on top, obviously, because London ended up winning it all. But it's pretty crazy how the Gladiators had their number previously, and I think this is a great back and forth between 2 really good teams. You have some very historic plays like the old Surefour 23 switcheroo, whatever you called it.
I don't know.
That was a fantastic play. I'm looking forward to seeing these 2 teams play, but man, oh man, do the Gladiators have a pretty hard stage 1. They face London, they face Hangzhou, they face San Francisco, they face Seoul, all 4 teams expected to be top 10 teams, I believe, by most. So we'll see how good this Gladiators roster is. They have some immediate tests. And I like here on Liquipedia, 3 weeks and 3 days until we see the Gladiators and Seoul Dynasty play. I don't know if that's on the first day. I think that might be the second day.
I don't know.
But we're so close to this season. I'm so excited. I can't believe it's coming. What do you compare it to season 1? They finished 6th if you count the playoffs. They finished 4th in the regular season standings. Do you think the Gladiators would do better, the same, or worse this season?
Yeah, so I think I've started to say this recently too, that the closer we get to the end of this, the more I realize that lots of my predictions have just been made in a vacuum, and so it's hard to tell exactly how they're going to fall out.
They're all doing better.
Yeah, but so here in a couple weeks
we're all going to finish first.
Yeah, here in a couple of weeks we'll have a show where we have like full power rankings, so that'll be more definitive. But in the meantime, LA Gladiators, I can definitely see them in. They're definitely a top 3rd team, so like top 6 or 7 probably for me. I don't necessarily, to narrow it down from there, I don't think they'll be they'll be top 1 or 2. I think, but 3 through 6 or 7, I think is pretty confident for this Gladiators roster, based on what we're looking at.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people have it. If you know me, you've been listening to this podcast, then you know that I'm on the Gladiators hype train this season. I think they're going to do better. I think Maybe the same, actually, regular season standing wise, but I think playoff wise, they're going to do better. Uh, I think losing in the first round was super low for the Gladiators. I think they at least make semifinals, but I had them in my very early finals prediction going to the finals. I still believe that could be true. I think the Gladiators, without Fissure, can achieve even more, honestly, especially with Decay and Roar. I'm super impressed by that Chengdu pairing pickup right there. Arguably the two best pickups you could have gotten from Chengdu Panthera, which is sad for the Shanghai Dragons who got the rest of them. But yeah, I'm super excited. I'm on the hype train for the Gladiators. Let's move on to our Atlantic team this week, which is a new team, the Toronto Defiant. This is one of those expansion teams that I think everyone has some silent hype for. They've got like a good coaching staff. They got like a ragtag team. I think people are getting some Boston Uprising vibes from this team. It's built off of a lot of unknown players that you could see a lot of synergy coming from, though. A lot of O2 Ardnet's Korean Contenders players on this team, including Yakpung, Stellar, Ivy, and Rocky. And then you have former Boston Uprising Neko, former Los Angeles Gladiator Asher. You got Envy. You got a nice little team here that I think a lot of people are saying, hey, this team could possibly make a run. What do you think about it, Joe? Do you think they could do that?
Yeah, it's sort of, I don't know. This team sort of strikes me funny. I think it was one of the first ones that was announced out of these expansion teams. And what I noticed first was, call me cynical, that features lots of Overwatch League talent, but like these are the players that have sat on several benches, and now they're coming in here as a team. Thinking about Envy has been on played for LA Valiant for a while, and he was good there. Came from Metabellum most recently, Korean Contenders. People like Asher from LA Gladiators, dropped in for bigger and better things here in season 2, or Neko from Boston Uprising, like you said. But yeah, I don't know. It's a interesting sort of combination here. I think you're right though. What did you say about coaching? That they're I feel like I should know their coaches.
Yeah, they have Bishop, who
that's who it was.
A big name
From London, I think, right?
Yes, he was from London. He unfortunately had to leave London because of some family issues in the middle of the season. But he was like stage 1, I believe some was stage 2, London's head coach, and he's got a history overall in Overwatch as one of the best coaches. He's been spotty as of late, though. He hasn't been as good as he originally was.
Yeah, I think Bishop's definitely gonna be a strength for this roster. Obviously, not even playing on it, but yeah, to be able to pull these guys together into something, I think there's a handful of teams in the league that I really it's really for me just gonna have to wait and see how this goes. I think for sure Boston is one of those rosters, but Toronto I think is another. It's sort of a small core that they've only got 8, which is the minimum they had to finish the signing window with. But yeah, so we'll see how it goes. But they're quietly confident. It's fair to say, So we'll give them a B minus for confidence.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's some. I believe that silent hype is coming from the fact this is an all Korean roster, and all Korean rosters just have a history of just being good. Just being consistently like good. But you have a lot of experience in this league. This is a brand new team. Like you said, it's made up of like Neko, Asher, Envy, all sort of rejects from their previous team, unfortunately. But I mean, you got a nice little. I don't think O2 is the best Korean Contenders team you could have gotten players from, but with a coach like Bishop, I think anything is possible for this team. I think I think their best signing is Bishop, not any of the players, because I think Bishop's a great head coach. I believe he could bring together anybody and just have at least a semi-successful team. So I'm gonna give him a nice B minus as well. Honestly, they are silently confident. I haven't heard too much from this team at all, honestly, except from back when they announced their branding, and they were very confident back then about how the team was looking. But obviously they're going to be. They're not going to come out and say, "Oh no, we look terrible." Like so far we're absolute trash. I don't expect us to do well.
It's true.
But yeah, I think they could pull something out of the hat this season with this roster possibly, especially with Bishop on the reins. So B minus from me. Stand-up players. I know I said that I kind of implied they're stand-up players, their coach, but let's talk about players a bit. Who on this roster stands out to you, Joe?
Yeah, so again, players that this team is going to want to see have success, and I'm definitely going to have to call out their former Overwatch League rosters here. Sort of one in every like player category for what it's worth. Neko as a support, Asher on DPS, and Envy on the tank line. Again, out of those, probably get my focus on Envy again, just because of this sort of tank heavy meta we're in now. But to be able to watch these three vets coming in and lend their support is going to be really crucial for this roster.
Oh yeah, completely agree with you there. I don't know too much about the rest of this roster. Honestly, I don't. I don't think I've ever seen O2 play. Honestly, I've never sat down and said, "Hey, I should watch O2 play tonight." And Korean Contenders. I'm super excited. They're just not at the forefront of Korean Contenders. So I guess I am excited to see maybe that DPS pairing of Stellar and Ivy from O2 coming together and making some big plays if Azure isn't starting. I do not know what to expect from this team at all. The only stand-up players are the ones previously from Overwatch League, because I don't know too much about the rest of them, honestly. So possibly these O2 players could be a lot better than I think they're going to be. But for now, I'm looking forward, like you, to seeing someone like Envy or Neko or Asher, who, I mean, they're all pretty good on their Overwatch League teams, just weren't good enough fits for all of them. So I'm excited to see them in a new space, on a new team, see how they could perform there. Toronto Defiant, another new team. It's hard to give anticipated matchups for new teams, but I believe there's a good amount of rivalries with all these former Overwatch League players on the team. Who are you most looking forward to seeing the Toronto Defiant play this season?
So I'm gonna have to pick the cop out answers and say LA Valiant, LA Gladiators, and Boston Uprising. But no, it's I think the other big one to point out is obviously Vancouver, right? That's the other Canadian team.
Canada.
We can have a battle for Canada now.
They only play once too.
Yeah,
so
I'm not sure how well it's going to go for Toronto, but it'll be cool to watch at any rate.
Yeah, I didn't remember that one actually. That's fantastic. Battle for Canada, an entire country being battled for. I love it. I'm gonna go Boston Uprising, not only because of Neko, but because of this Toronto esports stuff as well. I feel like Boston, Toronto, they've had some jarring back and forth. Obviously, Toronto esports and has been calling out Toronto Defiant like crazy, and Toronto esports is the academy team for Boston that eventually had to change. So I think Toronto Defiant is already a little upset at this small Toronto esports team that is yelling at them. It's almost, I'm imagining Toronto Defiant like up on their new team house on a cliff as the Toronto esports team is yelling down from below the cliff up at them to challenge them, to face them. And Toronto Defiant is not responding. They do not care. But lots of drama there. So Boston, Toronto, obviously, I'm looking forward to that because I think Toronto. I don't think they liked. I don't think anybody liked what Toronto Esports was throwing at them. So I'm looking forward to that one. You can't compare it to season one. Obviously, this is a brand new team, so we've just been giving sort of, as numbers wise, a range we think Toronto's going to finish in the final league standings. There are 20 teams this league, or this year. If you didn't know, Joe, where about do you see them finishing?
Yeah, so Toronto, I think for me, we're looking at a bottom half team. That's how it is. But I think they are going to finish probably above the likes of teams like Florida or DC or Chengdu, which again seem to be pretty consistently there, sort of in the bottom. But yeah, I don't know. So if we're talking about a numerical range, somewhere like 12 to 16, I think is fair. And as I like to say, I invite this team to change my mind and to surprise me. Yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm sticking them for now.
Yeah, I'm going around the same. I do think they're bottom half. I do think they're like 13 to 16. I got a bigger range here. I don't know. I think 13's they're like high. I'm not too impressed with their team. I think a lot of people are saying they could surprise. I don't think. I think they're mid range. I don't even think they could make the wild card tournament here. I'm not too impressed by the roster. So that's it. Toronto Defiant, LA Gladiators. Check them off the list. And Joe, we have 2 more weeks left before we finish these previews, and then, if I'm correct, that next week we are going to give out our power rankings. Is that?
Yep. Yeah, this is the week.
Yes.
The episode that'll come out right before opening day.
Oh my goodness. So we have 4 teams left. We have Paris, Washington, Guangzhou, and Seoul left. So three new teams and the Seoul Dynasty, the last of the inaugural teams. So God, I'm excited. I gotta start getting my power rankings ready and reading out here. It's gonna be a big episode. That should be an exciting one. But besides that's all we got for this episode. If you haven't seen it yet over on our Twitter, I Will By the Numbers. This is a brand new podcast that has just been created by a friend of the show, Totally Drunk, who is the creator of the Overwatch League network, which is a website that aggregates all these podcasts, puts them on there every single week, which we thank them for putting us on there. Almost every week we get out an episode, so thank you once again to Overwatch League Network. But they have a brand new podcast called Owl by the Numbers. Episode 0 is what they're calling it. Just came out recently. Them alongside Foul Play, which is High Noon Pick'em. They have their own podcast, the creators of High Noon Pick'em. It's going to be a fantasy Overwatch podcast. Both of these fantasy Overwatch League podcasts, and they have invited us on the flank to be a part of a podcast Overwatch Fantasy League. So we're super excited to be a part of that. And I believe the draft is going to be sometime in February. They're going to have a whole podcast on our league, updating people, having us on every once in a while to talk trash to other people in the league. So we're super excited about that. We are one of the invited podcasts alongside the Broverwatch, Overtake, the Owl Recap, and the Bird Watchers. So if any of you guys are listening, you guys are absolutely going down. I mean, there's just no chance. I spent the entirety of my of the fall obsessed with fantasy football. If you don't think I will do this, I won't do the same thing for fantasy Overwatch League, then you're wrong. I'm going all out. But yeah, Joe, any smack to talk, Joe? Or are you just in it for the ride?
I don't know. We'll have to see how that develops as we get closer.
Oh yeah. I believe how it's going to work is me and you will co-own a team, kind of. So
Oh, okay.
I know you don't have the history in fantasy, but I'm
true.
here to teach you about it. I'm here to teach you about it. Get our team to the top. But if you do have your own individual team too, then I'll still be helping you. I mean, that's not illegal, right, guys? It's not illegal. I can help.
Who knows? We'll
Yeah,
find
but
out.
I'm super excited for that. Thank you once again to Totally Drunk, Owl by the Numbers, and High Noon Pick'em Foul Play podcast. Look them up on Twitter. Go listen to it. We're super excited to be a part of that. But that's it for episode number 22. If you want to give us a follow on social media, our personal Twitter accounts are JWGeorgeIV, Joe's is Kirkpatrick_Inc. And then we have a show Twitter, On The Flank Show. You can also email us at ontheflankshow@gmail.com. If you have any topics you'd like us to talk about, you can either email us or you could tweet at us if you'd like to. Of course, you're listening to this somehow, but if you want to listen to it in a different way, you can go to ontheflank.podbean.com. My personal YouTube channel, which you can find on my Twitter page, iTunes, Apple Music, if you're an iPhone user, if you're an Android user, Spotify, or Google Play. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll check you guys out next week.